In her 9th grade, Yeardley Love wrote about what she wanted for her life: to attend the University of Virginia, to play lacrosse, to have a close relationship with her family, but only a few of these dreams came true. And it ended abruptly and violently when she was brutally beaten by her boyfriend, a man who was jealous, controlling, and allowed his rage to overtake him. This is the story of Yeardley Love. Around 2:15 a.m. on May 3rd, 2010, the Charlottesville Police Department were called to an apartment complex on 14th Street at the University of Virginia. The call had been made to say that a roommate was face down on the bed, not responding, and they felt it may have been alcohol poisoning. At the scene, a lady, later identified as 22-year-old Yeardley Love, was found on the bed, face down and unresponsive. There was bleeding evident. The police were dispatched and the ambulance crew arrived, but Yeardley was pronounced dead at the scene, and as detectives cordoned off the room with tape and got to work trying to find out how this has happened and who was responsible, the word quickly got around campus and more people arrived wanting to know what was going on. Police had to ask everybody to stand back away from the apartment, and on arrival detectives noticed obvious physical injuries to Yeardley's body. Yeardley had suffered a vicious attack, and officers also noticed a large hole near the front door handle. It looked like it had been kicked in. Yeardley Love was a senior college student who was only weeks away from graduating, and as police questioned the roommates and friends to find out about Yeardley, they wanted to know who she hung around with, if she'd recently had any arguments or fights with anyone, and whether she had a boyfriend. They soon discovered that Yeardley had recently split up from her boyfriend, a fellow student, George Hewley. Yeardley Reynolds Love was born on the 17th of July 1987. At the time of this story, she was 22 years of age. She'd been born to her mother Sharon, her father John, and they'd resided in Maryland. She'd attended the Notre Dame school, and she was a popular girl who had many friends. She was beautiful inside and out, and her parents described her as always seeing the best in people. She was kind, she was fun, and she was intelligent. Yeardley was a member of the varsity lacrosse and hockey field teams. She was an all-county lacrosse player in 2006 and had joined the University of Virginia, where she majored in political science and minored in Spanish. She was also a member of a sorority and as a member of the UVA women's lacrosse team, the Cavaliers. Yeardley lived in an accommodation with her roommate, the girl who had made the call that fateful night back in 2010. And at first, they thought that she might have been drunk. She was just sleeping on the bed. But what with the blood and the fact that she just wasn't responding was concerning. And after the ambulance diagnosed death, Yeardley's roommate and friends were scared. They were upset and they had no idea what to do. And as they messaged and called each other for comfort and for reassurance, they knew that the best thing they could do for Yeardley right now was to be as open as they possibly could with detectives and give them as much information as possible. But one of the first people that came to mind when friends and roommates were questioned was Yeardley's ex-boyfriend, George Hewley. Now, Yeardley Love and George Hewley had met in their freshman year at university. They were often seen hanging out together with their teammates and friends. George had apparently pursued Yeardley when they'd first met. Yeardley was already in a relationship with one of his teammates, but he'd kind of put the word out. He wanted her to notice him, and eventually it paid off. And they started dating. They'd been together for more than 2 years, but it was George's aggressive behaviour, triggered by alcohol, that had caused things to become sour between the pair. This had caused their relationship to be on and then off again, and at the time of this story, it was off. George was very protective of Yeardley. He would be very jealous, very controlling, and then add on top of that the alcohol, and it was just too much for Yeardley. She'd put up with quite a lot and she'd brushed a lot off. Friends spoke of a time when one night the friends had all been out drinking and enjoying themselves, and Yeardley had not really been on her phone that much. She'd not been messaging George, she'd just been enjoying her time. But when she looked at her phone later that night, she had 30 calls from George. Yeardley brushed it off. The friends said that this was normal. But Yeardley had told George, look, I'm tired, I'm at my friend Catherine's house, we're going to bed. But this was not good enough for George. He immediately went off the deep end, wondering where on earth she was, who she was she in bed with someone else? And his mind was racing with so much distrust. He texted her over and over with various aggressive texts, accusing her of being with another guy. But Yeardley brushed this off to friends, saying that was normal. He just gets very jealous and he's very protective. In 2009, George has also attacked a teammate after hearing that he had kissed Yeardley. But George was frustrated. He was angry that Yeardley was not wanting to start this relationship again. At this time, it was off. And he was worried, he was jealous that she may have someone else. And he started sending threatening text messages and emails to Yeardley. And the more he sat and thought about all the things that she could be doing while he wasn't there, the more he believed it and the more angry and possessive he became. Yeardley's roommates led police to George Hewley's flat. He was living next door to Yeardley. George Hewley was born on September the 17th, 87, also 22 years of age. He was born in Washington and attended an all-boys Landon school in Maryland. He resided with his family in Maryland, and George Hewley was also an American lacrosse player. And during his senior year at Landon, he was a quarterback for the football team. In 2007, George had been charged with underage possession of alcohol in Florida. This was where his family owned a vacation house. And in 2008, 2 years before this event, he was arrested for public drunkenness and resisting arrest outside one of the fraternity houses. Police had to literally taser George to subdue him because he was resisting arrest. And in this incident, he received a suspended sentence of 60 days and 6 months of probation and was fined. And he was ordered to perform community service and participate in drug treatment program. When he joined the uni, he was meant to disclose any arrest records to the UVA, but he didn't. During his 2010 season, George was a midfielder for the Virginia Cavaliers men's lacrosse team. And at uni, George majored in anthropology and was also weeks away from graduating. But now, at 5 a.m, police had knocked on the door of Yeardley's home to speak to her parents. As her mother opened the door, with her eyes half open because she'd been woken up, they asked, "Are you the mother of Yeardley?" She replied yes. The police explained that there'd been a struggle, that Yeardley had been beaten up in her flat and been found dead, and they felt it was murder. Her family were mortified. Police wanted to speak to George. He was their main suspect currently. And at the Charlottesville police station, George waived his Miranda rights and narrated this graphic details of how he assaulted Yeardley, stating that he kicked open the door, which was why there was a hole in the door, and had shook Yeardley, and her head had repeatedly hit the wall. George admitted that he took and intended to destroy her Apple laptop computer when he fled the apartment. With only living next door, he did not have far to go. He wanted to destroy all of the aggressive and controlling messages that he had probably sent Yeardley. Evidence that police seized from George's apartment included 2 Apple laptop computers, a spiral notepad, 2 white socks, bathroom and entryway rugs, and a Virginia lacrosse shirt with a red stain. Investigators also followed leads of domestic assault between the pair, including threatening emails, messages that had been sent back and forth, and they heard about the breakup. Friends had spoken about how the violent encounters between the pair had erupted and had to be broken up at one point by friends, and an incident in which George had attacked Yeardley while drunk. and whereafter George claimed he did not recall actually touching Yeardley, an unnamed student reported that the couple broke up after apparently George had assaulted Yeardley. On the 4th of May, police felt that they had enough evidence to charge George Hewley with murdering Yeardley Love, and he was held in the Charlottesville Regional Jail. At the 6th of May court appearance, his attorney, Fran Lawrence, stated that Yeardley Love's death was not intended, but an accident with a tragic outcome. George Hewley appeared at the hearing via video link. George and Yeardley Love had dated over the course of 2 years, but they had broken up at this point. On January the 7th, 2012, prosecutors added additional charges: felony murder, robbery of a residence, burglary, entering a house with an intent to commit a felony, and grand larceny. And on April the 18th, 2011, a grand jury indicted George Hewley on first-degree and felony murder charges, and a trial date of February the 6th, 2012 was set. Closing arguments were made on February the 18th, and jury deliberations began. After deliberating for about 9 hours, the jury delivered a verdict of guilty of second-degree murder and grand larceny. After a further 2 hours of deliberation, the jury recommended a 26-year sentence, 25 for second-degree murder and 1 year for grand larceny. A few of the jurors who spoke to the news media cited the importance of the videotape of Hewley's interrogation, in which a central part of prosecutor Dave Chapman's case. The jury found that pretty much every opportunity he had, he lied. He was not telling the truth on several occasions. Non-jurors for the first time were able to see George Hewley in a 64-minute video in which he was told of Yeardley Love's death. As he was interrogated by police, George Hewley admitted, "I may have grabbed her neck, and I may have shook her a little bit." He then retells the argument and fight that happened in Yeardley's bedroom, demonstrating how he shook her and kicked the door in. Eventually, the detective informed George that Yeardley was dead.
He killed her.
She's dead?
There's no way she's dead. There's no way I didn't do it. No way. No way.
George reacted in disbelief, in layman's, "Kill me," before the raw emotions seen in the tape. The jury was convinced that Yeardley's murder was not premeditated. Yeardley's mother Sharon and her sister Lexi founded One Love to honour Yeardley's positive spirit and to empower young people to see the signs of relationship abuse before it's too late. Today, One Love is the nation leader in preventing relationship violence and abuse, and the next generation learns to love better and to be with partners who practice healthy love. Yeardley's legacy lives on, ensuring the joy she brought to the world lasts forever.